Tonight's agenda are continued discussion of the 1/8% sales tax we use for public transit. So with that, I will turn it over to Catherine Walker.
Thank you. And is there anything more exciting than reading ballot propositions? I just don't know. Riveting stuff. I sent out with the packet a draft ordinance containing a proposition written the way we had discussed previously that restricts it to 1/8 of 1% for public transit systems and related purposes only. Since that time, I've been able to get a hold of John Sharp at the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments. And you all are pretty familiar with the Regional Transit Authority, and so I was asking him about their plans as far as their sales tax initiative goes. At some point, they're going to be coming forward in the next 2 to 5 years, asking the cities in the region to adopt a sales tax dedicated to the Regional Transit Authority. And so what I was asking him is, do you envision this being just rail transit, or do you envision this including the bus systems too? And he said, we believe it will have to include the bus systems in the region as well, that's part of what makes it work, that makes it more competitive for federal funding. And so I've worked on some language to address that. I didn't want to, one, just give you the one option, but two, do anything that would but jeopardize the success of that initiative. Also, if that service is turned over to the Regional Transit Authority at some point, we probably don't need this sales tax for transit. And so when you look at version 2 that I just handed out, I've added language at the end, so it'll be levied on April 1st, 2020, and shall end only upon successful adoption and implementation of a dedicated sales tax levy in furtherance of the purposes of the Regional Transportation Authority of Central Oklahoma, and that's the trust authority that's handling the regional transit for our region.
Councilmember Wilson?
Okay, well, what if, I think that's problematic a little bit with the shall end only upon the successful adoption. I mean, would that tie our hands to end it if there are other funding available for buses? And not that there would be magic funding that I can think of right now, but...
A change in the sales tax rate would have to go to the voters. If
we
it's a
wanted to take
permanent
it back
sales tax, and we
down?
wanted to take it back down, it would go back to the voters.
But this gives us the opportunity to take it back down if there's an implementation without a...
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's what we're trying to do here. And that way, it's keyed upon not only the adoption of that sales tax, but the implementation of the levy. So there's not a gap where you have a 2 or 3 month period where there's no sales tax being collected on this portion at least.
Councilmember Holman?
So I like the first part where it describes it as being for transportation and parking, but I do wonder what the other lawful purposes could mean. And I know that's something we'll definitely be asked about a lot.
I'm going to chime in with that. Councilmember Holman, I presented this today to the Aviation and Transportation Committee with the Chamber, and I got that exact same question. And other lawful purposes of, but then it says related thereto. So it has to be related to public transit. So is there a way to word it a little less or a little more clear that, because it says, I mean, am I interpreting that correctly, that it has to be related?
It would have to be
public
related to public transit systems.
Is there a way to update that writing to be a little more clear?
Yeah.
Other lawful purposes of the city related to public transit.
Yeah, public transit only, or something we need to be very cut and dry on this. Councilmember Wilson?
Didn't we also want to have the opportunity for parking?
It's just, that's just the fund that.
Oh, that's the fund
We're
name.
going to call.
Okay. Never mind.
The fund that these funds will be deposited into. It would still just be for public transit.
Okay.
I'll throw out there, I think this is a really great development. Another question I got today was, so when is this going to sunset? And it's not. Now it will. And so it helps us get through to that vision of regional transit that our state has, that we will benefit from. And I really like that it will sunset as soon as this passes. And if it doesn't pass, we still take care of public transit.
Right. That's the benefit, is if that were to fail at some point in the next 2 to 5 years, this would continue, so we can still support the bus system at least.
Councilor Wilson.
I'm hearing some feedback in the community about ending the TIF, and as it relates to this tax in particular, as far as people want the TIF ended and only vote for this if it's not ended, kind of a thing. Can we
If we don't end it the way they
do
want
some,
it.
no, there's some information out there to satisfy some of the rumors and questions? I know we're in a litigious situation where we don't want to, always show our full hand, but I feel like maybe there could be some opportunities for communication with the community on what's going on with the TIF.
Sure, and Annalise and I have talked about that a little bit, but about doing something that would provide that information. We do finally have a statutory TIF committee meeting set for August 27th.
Oh, yay.
So the timeline, of course, is to have it done as soon as possible. But we do have several steps to go through in the project plan amendment process. So, and a lot of that will depend on when the statutory TIF committee issues its finding and its reports related to the amendment.
Did you say August 27th?
Uh-huh.
What time?
8:30.
a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that makes sense.
There is a possibility of a meeting the next day as well. We've literally sent out over 100 potential times for meetings. So these were the two where we had
When it
quorum.
gets solidified and locked down, can you send us for sure?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what the plan is? I don't know if that was the plan or not.
Yeah.
Will it be here?
Yes. Yeah, and obviously the goal there is to have all of that done and back to council. If it goes as well as it can possibly go, maybe the end of September or first meeting in October, so before the November election date, certainly.
Councilmember Holman.
And then once they return it, we will have at least 2 public meetings.
It has to go to planning commission, and then there will be 2 public hearings.
So 3 public hearings before a final vote is taken on.
Correct.
The TIF deal.
Councilmember Scott.
Do you know what the proposal the state will want, or the for this RTA sales tax?
Originally, they looked at 0.5%. They're really thinking, and this is 2014 when they last did a cost update. They're thinking maybe 0.5%. Part of their process over the next 2 to 5 years is to look at their numbers again and make sure that whatever they bring forward is enough to get the job done. There's been a lot of changes. The streetcar in Oklahoma City has come online. Obviously, we've got the bus system with Embark and that partnership, and so they need to look at all of those and update the cost to present day numbers. But they were in the 0.5% to 5/8% range when I spoke with them today. The statute allows them to go all the way up to 2%. I don't think anyone wants to go to 2%.
That would put us in
That
double
would-
digits.
It would be difficult to get adopted, so they're definitely looking at far less than that. But
Okay.
And with an update with that process, I've spoken to Marion Hutchison, who is our kind of delegate to the RTA committee, if you will, and we're going to start scheduling, I believe in September, regular meetings with him, Councilmember Holman as both the ACOG representative and chair of community planning and transportation, and myself, and staff will attend those meetings as well, but to make sure that we're able to communicate that information with all of you about where we're at in that process, because people are getting excited about it. It's still a long ways out, and I think these meetings will really help us stay on top of it. Councilmember Holman.
And I know some of you have heard this before, but just so everybody is up to date on it, the state law mandates that the RTA can only be funded with sales tax.
Yeah.
So that's
unfortunate.
unfortunate,
That's
but
super
that is what the state law says currently about regional transit in Oklahoma. Yeah. So, but I was concerned they were gonna ask for a whole percent in the original. So
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of relieved to hear that it's not gonna be a whole percent.
No. Yeah, and I've reached out to Catherine Holmes. She's the attorney that's been assisting ACOG and the RTA group through this whole process. This is sort of her specialty, public transit. So I'm going to run this language by her too and make sure that it fits with what she sees the RTA doing in the future. But so it could be subject to a few tweaks. But I think it will end up being something like this if you all want to create that kind of sunset.
I love the sunset idea. I like that because we are already putting some towards it. It'll actually be felt less in Norman because we get a reduction as we add that on. So I think that helps both sides of it, frankly. Any other questions? All right. When can we expect, if you're going to have further conversations, when do you think we'll know if we're going to get tweaks or not?
At the end of this week, at the latest, I would think, unless she's out of town. We've been emailing back and forth. So.
I was asking because I know first reading is August 27th. I know that we can amend it after first reading, but I think we all have worked together on a clear vision of what we want to do with this. And I think this is a great development, and we should make sure we get it right.
Yeah, so if I make any changes, I'll definitely send it out to you all before the first reading.
So do we plan to discuss this next week for study session, if there are any updates?
We can if there are any updates, but
Okay. So for now, we're potentially looking at, 90% done-ish language? Well done, team. People thought we couldn't get it done in time. Look at it. All right. I don't see any other questions or comments, so I will go ahead and wrap up this conference. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Sure, we can, slowly, instead of shoving it into our face.